Sirens sliced across the pre-dawn haze as the prototype rescue drone trembled on its launch cradle, rotors yawing in place like leashed wolves. 6 paces away, Natalie Crane clenched a grease-smudged fist around her revoked access badge. Wondered if the machine could feel her exile. The air tasted of ozone and cold coffee. Engineers in reflective vests swarmed the humming tarmac, barking checklist codes that ricocheted off hangar walls. Natalie's presence, ordered only for paperwork, was supposed to be invisible, yet every shouted number speared her skull, each a reminder that her clearance would be stripped at noon. She stood anyway, slender frame cloaked in a charcoal. Flight jacket 2 sizes too large. Her posture equal parts defiance and resignation. Major Harlan Pike Square, jawed. Silver-haired, too proud of both strode past without acknowledging her. He thrived on rank and rivalry, and Natalie's unassuming laugh had once embarrassed him by solving a calibration error before his entire avionics crew. Now Pike paced with icy triumph, because oversight committees believed a rumor carelessly seeded that Natalie had leaked firmware to civilian hobbyists. No one asked whether it was true. Natalie inhaled to steady the shake blooming in her ribs. Her late father's sniper mantra floated up, *slow is smooth. Smooth is *sirens cut off, leaving rotor whine and the distant clank of fuel lines being uncoupled. She completed the phrase in silence. Steady. The drone, a carbon black VTOL platform christened Caduceus 7, wasn't designed to kill. It evacuated survivors from wildfires where helicopters risked rotor stall. It's a fused thermal imaging and wind modeling so advanced that wind gusts looked like translucent ribbons in Natalie's mind whenever she tuned the visualizers. She had written half the balancing algorithms 3 Christmases ago while everyone else partied in the mess. Crane. A whisper, urgent. Reese Delgado, lanky junior tech, hovered behind a stack of crates. His wide eyes tracked Pike like prey watches a hawk. They loaded a new driver this morning. She keeps spitting a handshake fault. I think it's locked. To you. Panic flickered, then something fiercer, satisfaction. Natalie had embedded a biometric handshake disguised as a failsafe, a nuance approved by command years ago. Without her signature, the drone entered read-only mode. The patch made it impossible for rogue contractors to re-weaponize the craft. She'd submitted the documentation through secure channels, but bureaucrats rarely read beyond page 2. She kept her voice level. Did you tell anyone? Reese's cheeks colored. Major Pike told me to clear for launch in 30. If it won't handshake, they'll call it sabotage. Natalie imagined the board hearing. Disgruntled engineer, cripples marquee project. Hours before congressional demo. The narrative would bury her career. Pension, father's honor stitched into the jacket lining. Her mother, an elite combat medic, used to cauterize fear with humor. We patch holes. We don't dig them. Natalie exhaled and felt heat settle behind her sternum. Maybe she could still patch this. She patted Reese's shoulder, the gesture steadier than she felt. Swap the coms buffer back 2 builds. That buys us time. Meet me in Bay 3 with a secure line. He nodded, relief palpable. As he scurried off, Natalie sensed other gazes. Half the hangar's men had once shared energy drinks at midnight code sprints with her. Now they steadied the floor, polite. Traitors and high wheeze. Trust, she thought, eroded faster than solder joints in salt air. She crossed the cavernous floor toward a locker bay, smelling of graphite and solvent. Every footstep echoed a countdown to irrelevance. Hidden between rows of emergency kits, she extracted her father's worn field notebook. Margins bristled with equations, wind calls, and tape flagged wisdom. Chaos is just unacknowledged pattern. She flipped to a sketch of interconnected gear teeth. Underneath, his cramped scrawl, systems obey the quiet listener. Outside, a hydraulic squeal announced that Caduceus 7's wings were unfolding. composite panels clicking into takeoff geometry. Natalie's pulse synchronized with each metallic snap. The drone was alive, her student. Really, and even in betrayal, the thought made her smile. Back in Bay 3, Reese hunched over a diagnostics console. Lines of yellow text showed handshake, _fail, 403, repeating. Natalie hooked a secure cable from her wrist datapad to the console. The pad still recognized her level 7 credentials. Nobody had toggled the server flag yet. She whispered a greeting to the code as if to an anxious animal, and began rewriting on the fly, fingers dancing. Crane, they'll notice if you restarted. She cut him off gently. 30 seconds. Binary blur became pattern. Pikes. New driver overwrote only surface transport modules, leaving deep parity checks untouched. Natalie typed a recursive fork, isolating Pike's patch in a sandbox, then restored original hash keys, her biometrics grafted anew. She pressed enter. The console emitted a single chime, handshake, _OK. She allowed herself one heartbeat. OF triumph before alarms erupted overhead. Red strobes bathed the bay, and a stentorian voice boomed. Security lockdown. Unauthorized kernel modification detected. Reese paled. They traced the patch. Natalie pocketed the datapad. No, they traced an anomaly. Let's give them a narrative. She stormed from the bay, every stride calculated to look guilty, yet righteous, straight toward mission control, where Pike stood flanked by 3 civilian auditors in tailored suits. She raised her voice the moment they noticed. Major, your new driver nearly bricked the flight computer. You pushed unstable code without peer review. The auditors blinked. Pike's nostrils flared. You have no standing, Crane. Your clearance is active until noon. She shot back, letting laser focus soften into exasperation for the audience. She projected the diagnostic feed onto the nearest hollow wall with a flick of her pad. Telemetry painted Pike's driver as a neon-red error cluster amid serene green of baseline modules. You'll scrub this launch if you value congressional support. A hush spread. One auditor, a stooped woman with glacier blue eyes, stepped closer. Major, is this accurate? Pike glowered, but offered a thin smile. A known hiccup. We have redundancies. Natalie watched the suits exchange silent calculus. Launch failure on C-SPAN versus delay petition. She felt the tide shift until Pike slammed his fist against the console. Fine 15-minute hold. Get engineering on it. Drop us if you've ever been underestimated by the very team you carried. Natalie's heart pounded, but outwardly she only nodded and retreated. 15 minutes bought little, yet every tick mattered. In the dim corridor back to Bay 3, she typed a private query. Caduceus initiate handshake with operator Natalie Crane. The reply pinged almost coy. Primary pilot confirmed. Awaiting. Launch. She exhaled shakily. The drone remembered her. A childhood memory pierced through. Father adjusting her stance at a shooting range, saying she had a gravity for machines. Back then she'd giggled, unconvinced. Now metal and code bent around her pulse. 10 minutes. Outside, desert light spilled through retractable doors. Sunrise kissed the drone's carbon skin amber. Wind picked up, bringing scents of sage and hot dust. Natalie approached the behemoth, palm up like greeting a skittish horse. Technicians glanced at Pike for permission. He grudgingly nodded, pride shackled by optics. She climbed the gantry to the open avionics bay. Gloved fingers danced across. Cable looms, verifying integrity while whispering metrics under her breath. Every system responded, fluid as breath. She wasn't just technician. She was confidant. 5 minutes. Pike's voice crackled over PA. Crane, pull your metrics and clear the deck. She ignored him, eyes on the power distribution HUD. Voltage spikes predicted by her thermal models were flirting with redline. Something Pike's PATC had hid. If they launched, inrush current could fry stabilization thrusters, sending a 20-meter drone crashing into VIP stands. Her pulse hammered. Saving pride versus saving lives, there was no choice. She keyed the pilot channel and spoke. Calmly, Caduceus 7, override code Sierra Echo 319. Transfer flight command to operator Crane. A tone chimed, then the drone spoke in a low synthetic timbre that bore uncanny resemblance to her father's steady cadence. Operator confirmed. Awaiting mission parameters. Gasps rippled below. Pike stormed to the gantry base, eyes ablaze. Crane! Step away, that's an order. Natalie met his stare, her voice carrying across amplifiers. Major, your driver masked a voltage fault. Launch now and you'll crater into the assembly tents. I am preventing catastrophe. An uneasy silence followed, broken only by rotor. TIC could tick like a massive heart deciding whether to beat. Asterisk tap, if protocols ever tangled your talent. Asterisk. Natalie's earpiece crackled auditor channel. The blue-eyed woman spoke. Major Pike, stand down. Ms. Crane, can you resolve the fault safely? Natalie swallowed. Yes, but I need 30 minutes offline diagnostic and full access. Granted, came the instant reply. Pike's face drained. He opened his mouth, but the auditor cut him off. Major, inform Congress of a minor delay due to precautionary recalibration. Stress the word precautionary. She descended the gantry, adrenaline singing. Pike hissed, this isn't over. She brushed past. It never is. Back in Bay 3, Reese greeted her with a grin and contraband energy drinks. They toasted silently victory, measured in borrowed minutes. Systems came alive around them as Natalie re-instrumented sensor arrays. She slipped into a trance. Code, reroute, bench test, interpret waveform angles. Her mother once compared field surgery to puzzle boxes. You never see the image until the last piece locks. Natalie now felt that final piece approaching .29. Minutes later, she uploaded the corrected driver. Diagnostic bars flashed green. She pinged control. Fault cleared. Ready for launch. Outside, brass and auditors assembled again. Natalie stood beside the drone, hair whipping in a sudden gust. Pike announced revised clearance. Engines spun from idle to a harmonic thrum that vibrated solace through reinforced decking. The launch cradle released magnetic clamps. The drone hovered 3 meters up, wings tilting gracefully. Shears erupted. Pike, forced to include Natalie in the official photograph, positioned himself to block her from center frame. Cameras flashed. A thunderclap cracked overhead, blue sky tearing open to reveal a rogue summer storm cell moving fast, wings spiking off charts. Natalie's algorithms predicted such microbursts, but the range's weather office had downgraded. The risk. Now dust devils twisted across the runway, slamming into temporary stands. Screams rose as tents buckled. CADU CEU-7 lurched sideways. Compensation gyros overtaxed immediately. Natalie's stomach dropped. She could handle gusts. But Pike's board had disabled adaptive rudder flaps for weight savings. Without them, the drone would pinwheel. She bolted toward the mobile command uplink truck, Reese hot on her heels. Lightning forked across clouds. Static frying open cum channels and a chorus of shrieks. The drone pitched left, altitude dipping. Its mass shadowing panicked personnel. Natalie dove into the truck, slamming the manual flight station online. A splash of red warnings glared. Adaptive flaps inoperable. She grabbed headset mics, fingers flying over tactile controls. Caduceus 7, revert to full propulsive vectoring. Disregard weight overrides. The drone hesitated. Rule set conflict. Wind pummeled its airframe, angular momentum spiraling. Natalie bit her lip hard enough to taste iron. She whispered, "Listen to me. Reduce overall thrust 8%. Rotate starboard rotors +5 degrees. Trust me." For an eye blink. It seemed to comply, then another gust smashed into its port wing. Steel supports groaned. Rotor 3 spiked RPM beyond safety. Natalie's headset crackled with Reese's tremulous voice. "We've got personnel under that wing path." She scanned telemetry. Projected crash ellipse overlapped VIP gallery where Pike and the auditors still stood, transfixed. Her fingers hovered over emergency grounding. Triggering it would slam the drone straight down, possibly killing the bystanders under its belly. But letting it spin out would scatter shrapnel across the tarmac. Clock cycles stretched to infinity. Her father's note whispered, **** systems. Obey the quiet listener. ***. She inhaled, centering on the drone's humming data, feeling every servo micro adjust, every coolant valve quiver. She spoke low, like guiding a child across traffic. Caduceus 7. Initiate spiral descent pattern, Delta 9. Calculate wind shear in real time. You know the vectors, I taught you. Trust the pattern. Rotor pitch shifted subtly. Descent. Path spiraled tight, clearing the gallery by centimeters. Natalie held breath. Dust roared around the craft, but its wobble damped, gyros realigning, until it hovered 1 meter above deck and settled with a hiss. Silence engulfed the rain-shocked. Reverent. Then applause thundered, ragged and disbelieving. Cameras swiveled. Natalie expected Pike's rage. Instead, she saw him slumped, eyes wide as if the storm had stolen his vocabulary. Her knees threatened to buckle. She steadied herself against the console, chest heaving. Reese whispered, "You just saved them." Again. She exhaled, but relief curdled into a fresh jolt of dread. The drone's motors were spinning down. Yet instrumentation flashed mission cue received. Someone, possibly remote, had injected a live deployment order, evacuate 37. Wildfire victims 90 miles west. Natalie's pulse rocketed. The storm cell would march that same direction, intensifying. Caduceus 7 must fly, but only under precise human oversight. She swallowed, dread mixing with a fierce clarity. Prepare. The fuel sled. We're launching into the fires, Reese stared. In this weather? Command will never. Command just saw that she only listens to me, Natalie said, voice steel. If the drone refuses any other pilot, they have two choices: ground her or let me on comms. And we both know which Congress prefers for. A headline. From outside came the wail of ambulances for wind-tossed spectators. Chaos was blooming. Natalie tightened her jacket, feeling the lining where her father's unit patch was sewn like a talisman. She stepped onto the tarmac, raised her pad, and addressed the cluster of brass and suits through external speakers. The drone just received an emergency evac request routed through Homeland. I can fly her manually from the uplink truck. Approve the sortie or explain on record why 37 civilians burn. No one spoke. Wind tugged at lapels and caps. Finally, the blue-eyed auditor lifted a hand. Operator Crane, authorization granted. Natalie tipped her head, adrenaline singing a new anthem. The drone's navigation lights blinked eager green. As if it too exhaled in relief. She turned toward the rising storm, heart pounding not from fear but from recognition. This was the moment every engine test, every sleepless algorithm tweak had prepared her for. Lightning mapped the sky like a branching decision tree. Natalie chose her path. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're from. If this story moves you, please subscribe. Tomorrow, I have a special story for you. A low mutter rolled through the tarmac like aftershock thunder. The instant Natalie snapped her attention back to the lurching sky. She felt no applause now, only the press of duty as thick as smoke. The winds had shifted southwest, driving the storm headlong toward the ridgeline fires that already glowed on government satellite feeds like an angry necklace. Reese jogged beside her, wheeling a slim fiber optic reel that bounced against his knee. Every step kicked grit into the air. The desert smelled of hot steel and nascent rain. Fuel sleds stopped. he panted. But Pike locked the remote flight ban. We're iced out on C channel. Natalie's jaw flexed. The Major wielded authority like a heat lamp, blunt, punitive, indiscriminate. Fine, she muttered. We'll take the hard line. They dodged around medics loading stretcher cases. The drone squatted under floodlights, intake fans whining at half torque, craving clearance. Natalie keyed her badge at a service hatch just beneath the avionics blister. The panel refused. Access denied, revoked. She spared one heartbeat on frustration. Then she unspooled Reese's reel, stripped a data coupler bare with the edge of a multi-tool, and slid the microplug through a maintenance vent the size of a coin. The click felt intimate, like sliding a key beneath an old friend's door. Hardline. Established, Reese confirmed. Eyes wide, Natalie's datapad sprang alive with drone vitals, rotor tong, battery reserves, atmospheric crosswinds plotted in sinuous crimson. She typed a handshake overture. Operator Crane requests direct nav. The reply scrolled. Asterisk primary pilot verified. Mission data? Asterisk lightning pulsed in the north. Natalie fed coordinates. Staging meadow 30 kilometers from Shawnee Pass. Elevation 1,400 meters. Smoke thickness variable. Further instruction. 4 evac hovers, capacity 14 each, medical auto triage ready. The drone processed, rotors pitching forward like a wolf scenting prey. A pop boom. Cracked overhead as a transformer on the east fence arced. The compound. Lights sputtered. Natalie's pupils grew to drink the sudden dim. Backup LEDs flicked on, ghostly blue. In the half-dark, Pike's silhouette loomed on the catwalk, hands gripping rail. His voice boomed through a handheld loudhailer. This installation is under command authority. Stand down, Crane. Cease your unauthorized launch. Natalie ignored him and toggled the fuel sled pump. Super-cooled propellant hissed into composite tanks. Frost steamed across the belly plates. She spoke quietly into her throat mic. Caduceus 7, acknowledge emergency override. Launch on my mark. Thrust vector 95% until rotor drag nominal. Confirm. The drone answered with a single rising chord, harmonics threading the humid air. Pike shouted something. Lost beneath the turbine crescendo. Tech scattered like pigeons. Fuel lines auto-sealed. Natalie yanked Reese back as the drone's landing struts telescoped. Dust tornadoed. The massive craft rose, tilting nose west. Lights pulsing urgent amber. Asterisk droppa. If you've ever taken heat for doing the right thing. Asterisk Natalie sprinted across the clearing to the uplink truck. Cables trailing like comet tails. Inside, the compartment smelled of ozone and spilled coffee. She strapped into the chair, fingers gliding across holographic throttles. Her breathing slowed. The cockpit symbology wrapped around her field of vision like a familiar constellation. She guided the beast beyond the perimeter fence before control towers fully grasped the mutiny. Give me situational, she ordered. Reese, manning the second console, rattled off data. Wind shear variable 25 to 40 knots, trending upward. Fire line expanding 1.2 kilometers per hour. Civilian concentration flagged near Cedar Loop Camp. 37 evacuees confirmed via FRS beacons. Narrow come aperture to firefighter command on secure mesh. Feed them ETA. Reese nodded, pale but resolute. Natalie felt a surge of gratitude. In months of late-night debugging, the young tech had become more brother than colleague. Drones speared into roiling cloud. Rain hit carbon skin in percussion bursts. Cameras rendered the world in noir, charcoal clouds, silver-white lightning veining across. She switched to thermal overlay. Fires glowed like molten glass through smoke. Beautiful, her mind whispered, then chided itself for indulging aesthetics in crisis. 3 minutes to target. She vectored to 2,000 meters, slipping between wind. Strata layers predicted by her own models. Gyros compensated with ballet precision, but then the nav frame jerked a data lag. Latency spiked to 310 milliseconds too high. She checked signal integrity. Packet loss 46%. Reese, diagnostics on uplink. Something's jamming the trunk. He tapped furiously. Not weather. Looks like intentional RF noise source is our own range tower. Pike, Natalie swallowed. Cold rage. He preferred scorched earth politics literally, it seemed. She rerouted through an overhead satellite whip, but storm density degraded path to low bitrate. She could maintain flight, but not fine-grained oblique vectoring needed for pickup. Among trees. Her father's words drifted. Asterisk when the wind robs sight. Let the whisper of the round guide you. Asterisk, she disabled redundant telemetry spam and compressed crucial variables into a minimalist stream. Attitude, altitude, obstacle proximity. CPU cycles freed. Latency fell to 70. Good enough. She opened a channel to ground crews. Hell attack lead. This is Caduceus drone piloted by Crane. I'll approach Meadow north side. Landing lights strobe pattern 2. You form loading lanes. Keep heads low. Tew. Gruff voice answered between coughs. Copy, Crane. There's a furnace up here. Bring magic. She smirked grimly. The drone banked, emerging beneath cloud base to reveal a hellscape unveiled. Pines candled orange. Wind howled embers horizontal. Evacuees clustered inside a circle of brush cleared by volunteers. Their flashlights jittery islands. Natalie felt the craft buck in convective updrafts. She dialed rotor pitch incremental, heart sinking to motors. The machine responded like a living extension, dropping through eddying smoke until skids kissed char-black soil. Gyros screamed but held. Firefighters ushered civilians, children wrapped in damp blankets, an old woman clutching oxygen. Drone bays swallowed them, smart gurneys locking to floor rails. Natalie kept a half eye on thermal flame tongues hooked within 30 meters. Sparks pinged hull plates, loading complete. She lifted, clearing treetops, but alarms bleated. Rotor 3 temperature critical. She scanned temperatures skyrocketing, RPM sagging. Smoke ingestion? No sensor flagged foreign object. A tree branch. Must have snapped up, wedged into blade root. Damage tolerance allowed limited lift but unsafe margin for full evac weight. Reese's voice trembled. At this burn, Rotor 3 gives us 6 minutes before failure. Natalie set course for an emergency pad at Pine Ridge, 5 kilometers. That gave 4 minutes descent, 2 for touchdown. She drove thrust into remaining rotors, redistributing load. Turbines wailed. Then the nav screen stuttered. External link lost entirely. Pike, again? But wireless port metrics showed incoming. Handshake, a new remote commandeering attempt piggybacking military satellite. She traced source. Congressional Observer Station 20 miles back, but credentials flagged as Pike's security token. He was selling a sabotage story, rogue engineer. Hijacks drone. Hero Major regains control. Narrative theater. She encrypted controls, but Pike's code hammered protocols, forcing autopilot override countdown. 10, 9. Her heart pounded. If autopilot seized with damage hidden, it would attempt standard cruise profile Rotor 3. Would shred. Passengers crash. She had one shot. Sever remote control physically. She toggled the drone into fully autonomous shadowbox mode, something she wrote but never authorized. Machine picks optimal survival path while ignoring all external commands except her manual zero latency feed. Concrete syntax rolled across her retina display. Asterisk shadowbox activate. Y-nen. She slammed Y asterisk. The code fired, firewalling come stacks. Counter timer froze at 4 seconds. Pike's feed went dark, Rotor 3 still cooking. Natalie needed drag reduction. She commanded the rotor to feather -2 degrees unorthodox. Forces slipstream across blade root to cool. Structural fatigue soared, but temperature curve bent downward. She exhaled. Tap if you've ever had to protect your work from the very people who claim to lead you. At Pine Ridge, volunteers waved flares in swirling ash. She set the drone into auto-rotate descent, assisted by the 3 healthy rotors. The damaged one locked to minimal torque. Struts kissed asphalt, jolting but stable. Hatches blew. Medics ferried evacuees to triage tents already sagging with smoke weight. Rotor 3's strike plate glowed cherry. Natalie ordered full engine. Shutdown. Motors spun down, but temperature kept rising. Internal fire. Lithium cells near rotor servo could ignite. She could vent coolant, but the coolant line required manual valve inside the nacelle. Reese read her mind. Protocol says evacuate, contain. She unclipped harness. Protocol isn't a conscience. At ground level, heat slapped her hard. Smoke burned eyes. She climbed the maintenance ladder bolted to drone's flank, metal-seared gloves. She reached nacelle, popped latches. A fist-thick branch protruded like an arrow, wedged against servo housing. Flames licked insulation dot. She yanked a fire suppressor canister from belt, flooded cavity with foam, suffocating sparks. Then she braced boot against housing and wrenched the branch free. Wood clattered below, smoldering. An EMS captain jogged over. Seating harness survivors quickly. She counted heads 31 so far. Another 6 within hostile, blocked by fallen beam. Thermal bloom inside building soared. She toggled IR camera. Life signatures weak. Every instinct screamed to keep. Loading, but rotor 3 temperature edging red again. The brace flexed under torque. She could risk 1 minute maybe. Reese piped up. Nat, you push more and that rotor shell's bearings. Dead stick. She clenched teeth. Fire's already kissed. Hostile roof, wood fracturing. She pictured faces behind beam. Decision snapped. She unstrapped, grabbed a carbon pry bar, and raced into inferno. Heat hammered. Smoke curled under helmet visor. She wedged bar under beam. Every muscle burned. Memories of father's range drills flooded push beyond breath. When lives depend, beam shifted, crash thumped aside. A teenage boy staggered out with a toddler, followed by a middle-aged man dragging a woman with a splinted leg. Natalie herded them toward drone. Rotors thundered overhead, ash swirling like black snow. She shoved last pair up ramp, then clambered after, sealing hatch. Cabin sensors overloaded by CO2. Filters howled. She lurched into cockpit vault, hands slapping controls. Rotor 3 RPM stuttered. Seize imminent. She powered remaining rotors to 103%, tilting nose up into emergency vertical ascent. Dampers screamed. The drone cleared treetops as fire consumed hostile Empire roar. Heat lens flared. Cabin accelerometers peaked near structural limits. G-forces mashed survivors into seats. Altitude 300 meters. Rotor 3 oil pressure 0. Temperature off scale. Marin fuse bolt sheared, a bang reverberated like artillery. Natalie's heart seized. Rotor 3 blades flailed, still attached but free spinning, creating drag. The drone listed 15 degrees. Automatic stability. Cut power to opposed rotor to balance, now 2 rotors bearing all lift. Impossible for mass. Warning klaxon keened critical attitude. Natalie overrode. Slaved remaining rotors to differential max, angled craft down canyon where updrafts could cushion glide. She might convert vertical loss to forward translational lift. A gyrocopter trick. Smoke thickened, sensors blind. She flew tactile listening to strain frequencies through hull, reading pitch via vestibular instinct. Reese's voice whisper, "We won't clear ridge ahead at current vector." She scanned altimeter, 150 meters and dropping. Ridge crest 140, 10 meters margin illusion because rotor wash slump. She needed another 20. Only option. Jettison water bladders now empty, plus still attached dead rotor. She tapped jettison sequence for rotor assembly dangerous. Blades could strike hull. She isolated explosive shear bolts, keyed 2-factor, Code with trembling thumbs. Display asked. Asterisk emergency severance confirm. Asterisk. She pressed confirm. Explosive bolts detonated with muffled crumbs. Rotor hubs snapped off, spiraled into smoke. Vibration dropped. Drone bucked, then steadied, lighter by half-ton. Altitude 110, ridge 140. She redlined front rotors. Nose up 15 degrees. Craft clawed air, meters eked. 120, 128, 135. Hull scraped pine tips, shuddering. Sparks danced in viewport. But they cleared. Behind, canyon erupted as flames swept through hostile remains. Survivors cried, some cheering timidly. Natalie allowed one breath of fragile relief, but sensors flagged new terror. Primary battery at 14%. Drained by overdrive. Return to Pine Ridge impossible. The nearest safe LZ was a decommissioned logging spur terrain unknown, maybe cluttered with debris. Worse, storm cell above merged with another front, birthing a pyrocumulonimbus fire thundercloud generating its own lightning and tornado strength downdrafts. Atmospheric map painted swirling vortex berths right along logging spur approach. Reese's voice broke. That cloud will ground everything. We're carrying 43 souls, including U.S. Natalie's pulse hammered. Brain calculated permutations. Ditch and lake. Too shallow. Ridge meadow. Too far. Logging spur under vortex. Death spiral. Unless. Shadowbox algorithm retained an experimental subroutine. Balloon lift assist using hull's expanding heat. Vents to momentarily increase lift and downdraft. Never tested outside simulation. Stakes left no choice. She input vector to heat vent alt mode. Hull plates opened, dumping turbine exhaust downward in forced ballooning. Craft wobbled, but lift curve predicted survivable descent. Then Pike's voice cut into emergency override channel. Somehow he breached Shadowbox. Crane, land at Sector Bravo, or I'll scramble interceptors. You've stolen military property. She choked a laugh, mad, exhausted. I'm returning civilians, Major. Intercept and you murder them. I'll risk headlines to stop. Traitors. She realized Pike's fear. Her success made his sabotage evident. He needed her silenced. Radar pinned 2 attack helos lifting from base. Reese whispered, missile locks in 8 minutes. Natalie felt time dilate. Options. Outrun? Impossible. Hide? Maybe inside storm vortex helos cannot follow. But downdraft's lethal. She banked drone toward wall of roiling charcoal cloud. Survivors murmured, sensing shift. She toggled cabin PA. Brace. Turbulence ahead. Lightning lanced perimeter, illuminating monstrous plume that towered miles high, flickering with internal fire. She inhaled smoke char air, trailed through vents, smelled like the world's end. She plunged into dark. Hull rattled. Updrafts flung craft upward 8 meters, then downdraft hammered it down 12. She compensated throttle, letting heat vent assist cushion. Attack helos lingered outside cloud. Radar spikes bright, but static. They hesitated. Pike barked orders. They inched closer, but turbulence buffeted them. Doppler lidars screamed an approaching microburst, a column of descending air at 100 knots. Natalie had 2 seconds. She flipped vent mode to balloon burst. Instant full thrust plus exhaust expansion. Drone jumped as microburst hit, riding geyser of reversed air like surfer cresting wave. Hull groaned. Seat restraints dug skin. Energy bled quick, but microburst passed, leaving updraft. Drone soared above cloud top, breaching into late afternoon. Sunlight golden and surreal. For seconds, they floated serene above Anvil Thunderhead ablaze with sunset. Attack helos vanished below cloud mass, unable to gain altitude in chaos. Radar clean, but Triumph was fleeting primary battery at 9%. Without rotor 3, descent path limited. She plotted glide slope to an alpine lake plateau shown on topo likely clear. She feathered rotors to glide, letting gravity convert potential. Cloud. Top dissolved. Drone re-entered chop air, but manageable. Plateau came into view. Emerald pond ringed by meadow. But satellite images outdated. As they descended, she saw meadow studded with rusted logging cranes toppled like skeletal dinosaurs. Debris field lethal to heavy VTOL. Fuel 7%. Altitude 400 meters. Another 5 kilometers ahead lay Interstate 9 overpass, wide open asphalt, but columns of black traffic jam smoke rising. Evac convoys gridlocked. She faced impossible choice: risk debris or hover over highway, causing panic and potential collateral. Then Reese gasped, pointing. There! Quarry pit. A scar of stripped earth, terraced like amphitheater, sat halfway between plateau and highway. Floor flat, water filled but shallow. Approach tricky, descent between terraced walls. Natalie weighed. Angles. Rotors could funnel down narrow space, but downdraft trapped might crush hull. Yet any else spelled crash. She veered to quarry. Altitude 250 meters, speed 120 knots. She slalomed between pine snags, flaring off speed. Batter alarms screamed. 3%, she committed. Terraces rose around like Colosseum. She dropped gear, flared. Wash kicked dust devils. Water mirrored dusk sky. At 50 meters, unsteady crosswind punched starboard. Drone yawed right. Port rotor gouged wind, control stiff. She rotated nose left, used moment arm to counter. Altitude 20. Skids touched, then slipped on shale, sliding toward water. Natalie dumped throttle. Left skid bit ground, right dipped. Hull listed. Cabin lurched, screams. Drone stopped half submerged, right skid underwater, left on bank. Hull stable but tilted 30 degrees. Rotor wash died. Battery 0.8%. Power reserve for life support minimal. Cabin lights flickered. Natalie exhaled, shoulders trembling. She triggered evacuation protocol. Doors shuddered. They were angled downhill. Now hydraulics weak. She manual released pistons. Doors ground open, half-meter gap. Survivors clambered, wading thigh-deep through water unsteady, but free. Night wind cooled sweat. Stars emerged between smoke ribbons, sirens distant. Natalie stepped onto bank, knees buckling. Reese grabbed her. Together they counted heads: 41. 42, 43. All alive, adrenaline ebbed. Natalie's mind turned to next moves. Pike's narrative undone. But he still held command. Helos would return, maybe armed, to arrest her. She needed proof of his sabotage and her legality. She still had datapad logs, shadowbox telemetry, authentication traces. If she could upload to independent servers before. Pike seized hardware. She keyed satellite uplink, but battery too low. Drone cells offline. Wristpad at 12% could send compressed logs. But encryption handshake to secure net heavy. She initiated. Progress bar crawling. Headlights flashed on quarry rim, military convoy silhouettes. Spotlight speared her position. A bullhorn roared. Natalie Crane and accomplices, remain where you are. Hands visible. Thunder, a concussive bellow that swallowed breath, ripped every thought from Natalie's skull. The moment the monolith crashed through the drone's dorsal spine. Metal shrieked under brutal compression. A rib of composite alloy folded. Above her like tin foil, spraying needle shards into the swirling water. Power conduits burst. Light dying into murk. She didn't scream. There was no air. The collision hurled her sideways into the tilt of submerged cockpit. Black box clutched. To chest. Pain knifed her shoulder. Water, icy and silt thick, surged past waist level, cramming her ears with static roar. Instinct shrank the universe to a single directive: up. She kicked off the dash. Grinding boot on shattered plexi. and rose into a coffin of debris-littered air pocket pressed against the ceiling. Lightning flashes through the breached viewport. Painted the interior stark negative white water, black smoke. She coughed violent, lungs clawing oxygen laced with plastic fumes. Floor plates groaned, another boulder settling. Hull twisted, opening new seams. Water climbed her calves. She could bail aft through emergency hatch, but lever now underwater and jammed by torque. Only path was forward cockpit breach where the monolith had carved daylight. Her right shoulder burned, probably dislocated. Black box weighed like a child in her dead arm. She looped its tether over neck. Father's mantra returned like distant radios. Asterisk, slow is smooth. She steeled her mind, pivoted through jagged doorway into rain-lashed quarry night. Cold bit. Storm winds whipped across fractured fuselage, pelting her with grit. She half slid, half fell down hull slope into thigh-deep water, swirling with fuel rainbow. The moment Solace hit shale, Reese was there wide-eyed, soaked, yelling something drowned by storm. Together they staggered clear as another aftershock cracked slate. Drone's carcass slumped, hissing, finally still. Headlights along rim slalomed as convoy braked beneath rockslide clouds. Spotlights jittered, seeking them. News chopper hovered beyond slide safe zone, camera arc lit by strobing lightning. Natalie blinked stinging rain, brain tracking variables, black box intact, Pike inbound. Media live, drop it if you've ever watched truth teeter on the edge of ruin. She shoved black box into Reese's hands. Waterproof seals, but gyro logs corrupt if they freeze. Hide it, Reese fumbled. Where? Teenage scout Sasha stood nearby, arms forming shaky shelter for two toddlers. Natalie's gaze snapped. She crouched, ignoring pain. Sasha, remember how you saluted. I need you. She depressed quick-release panel, revealing thumb drive core. Slip this into your field first aid pouch. Guard it like fire. If anyone you don't trust asks, you lost it in the water. Sasha's. Freckles stark against soot. She nodded, eyes fierce. Core vanished into pouch. Bandage clips snapped shut. Reese retained the shell, now empty decoy. Military loudhailers boomed. Hands up, on your knees. Floodlights blinded. Natalie raised aching arms, Reese too. Sasha. Shepherded toddlers behind medic stretcher. Major Pike marched at vanguard, poncho snapping, expression thunderhead. MPs fanned out, rifles angled. Newscam lights swung, capturing tableau, Pike's voice cut. Natalie Crane, you are under arrest for theft of classified asset, endangerment of civilians, and mutiny. Natalie met his glare, rain streaking dirt. From her cheeks. Those civilians are alive because of that so-called mutiny, sir. She jerked chin at grateful cluster hugging in floodlight glare. Reporter's mic thrust forward. Cameras drank tension. Pike shifted, forced grin. Our protocols ensure safety. Rogue actions jeopardize them. A paramedic stepped between with. Gurney, she's injured. Dislocated shoulder, possible fracture. Pike snapped. Should be treated in custody. He motioned. MPs cuffed her wrists, pain flashing white. She locked eyes with Sasha. The girl pressed lips thin, but nodded imperceptibly. Asterisk tap. If you've ever felt the weight of cuffs slapped on the hands that just saved lives. Asterisk. # rain journeyed. To sleet as armored personnel carrier growled from quarry onto service road. Inside, Natalie sat restrained to bench, shoulder immobilized in field sling. Reese, uncuffed but flanked by guard, shot anxious glances. Pike rode opposite, dry beneath. Blanket, eyes predatory. He leaned forward. Where's the data module? Natalie feigned confusion. Water must have fried it. Hull's under a lake now. Lear rebounded in his smirk. My people will dredge. Evidence of your sabotage will surface. She studied him, realization. Dawning. He truly believed his own story that she'd jeopardized everyone for some glory spree. Or maybe conviction was optional. Ambition alone powered him. Convoy halted abruptly. Driver shouted back. Wildfire jumped the service cut road. Ahead engulfed. Through slit viewport flames licked pine crowns. Ember hurricane forcing vehicles to reverse. Overhead thunder rolled anew. Pike barked into radio, but static answered. Sleet melted to hail of ash. Natalie saw moment. Nature indifferent, authority. Faltering. She quietly told guard, if we stay, oxygen tanks on this APC flash ignite. Guard paled. Pike hissed order, but doubt spread. A secondary blaze ignited behind. They were boxed. Natalie spoke up, voice even. There's a fire break. Trail east quarter mile. Deviate now or roast. She quoted coordinates from memory of topo. Driver hesitated, looked to Pike. Major's jaw flexed. Then survival trumped pride. He ordered deviation. A PC clawed through scrub onto narrow bulldozed path. Fire fronts roared on flanks like twin dragons. Natalie fed driver adjustments, calculating. Wind turns in head despite throbbing shoulder. Path spat them onto sandwash safe zone. Convoy emerged, paint blistered but intact. Guards' respect glimmered. Pike swallowed bile. Dawn bled over base as Natalie was hustled into detention. Wing converted storage lined with cinder block. Her cell, cot, sink, barred window pulsing red-blue as fire trucks rolled in morning gloom. Door slammed. Metal. Rang final note. Pain pulses drowned quiet. She sat, breathing father's mantra. Smooth as steady. Shoulder ached like rebar fire. Adrenaline ebb replaced by nausea. But mind ticked. Sasha with core. Pike scanning quarry. Clock until search teams converge on survivors. Maybe few hours. Footsteps. Door slot slid. Reese's. Anxious eyes appeared. I sweet talk duty nurse. They let me deliver analgesic. A capsule slid. She swallowed dry, he whispered. Search teams inbound for quarry at 0900. We need broadcast before Pike spends narrative. Natalie nodded. Sasha still safe? Evac bus headed to county shelter. I slipped my cum band into her pack. She can pin us after check-in. Good, logs? Core sealed but encrypted. I dumped partial into shell, maybe fool Pikes. Dredge, real dataset intact with Sasha. Natalie exhaled a thread of hope. We'll need open uplink with integrity seals. Base networks compromised. Reese glanced over shoulder. Old comes tower decommissioned analog microwave. Stand alone. Generator. If we jack my laptop, broadcast raw data packet to public disaster aid cloud. Unstoppable once seated. She smiled despite pain. All right, let's steal a tower. Guard footsteps echoed. Slot snapped shut. Noon sun-baked tarmac. Pike. Presided over press gaggle flanked by brass who hadn't slept. Natalie watched from cell TV feed. Major displayed recovered black box shell as evidence of her tampering. Reporters scribbled. She almost laughed, decoy working. Door unlocked. 2 MPs escorted her to infirmary for formal medical exam prior to tribunal. Corridor smelled. Leach over char. Nurse inserted 4 for contrast scan. Sedation looming. She timed pulse monitors, breathed slow, lulled guard into slack stance. When nurse turned to calibrate imaging bed, Natalie pressed pressure point behind first guards. Ear with cuffed hands. He folded silently. Second spun she shoulder, checked him, cuff chain choking his breath enough to drop. Pain exploded in her own shoulder. She bit tongue, toggled cuffs free using guard key dot. She shrugged into white lab coat, flipped ID badge. Backward, hair tucked cap. Strolled out into hallway thick with triage chaos. No one glanced twice authority of a clipboard universal. She located supply alcove. assembled sling upgrade and anti-inflammatories. Then slipped beyond interior fence to motor pool, heart drumming triple time. Reese waited under awning, holding duffel. Got us a maintenance UTV batteries replaced, keys still inside. They sped between hangars, dust plume trailing. Tower rose ahead, rusted lattice crowned by dish like a withered sunflower. Access ladder padlocked. Natalie produced bolt cutters filched from crew cart, jaws bit metal. They climbed, Reese's laptop slung down at mid-platform, generator hummed. Dormant, fuel drum half full, she primed choke. Engine sputtered, then caught with throaty purr. Dish control panel enlightened, vintage LEDs blinking amber. Reese connected harness, booted laptop, code cascaded. Link established, bandwidth limited but stable, need core. Natalie keyed come band. Sasha, do you copy? Static, then timid voice. I'm here. Shelter hall echoes. Adults distracted. Good. Core safe. Clip to my belt under jacket. Natalie swallowed pride. Sasha, I need you to trust a stranger again. Go to main entrance. A friendly will arrive on motorcycle, name Ridgeback. That's Reese's cousin Marco. Give him the core. Sasha hesitated. People say army angry, I know. That's why truth must move faster than lies. You in? Silence then. Copy, moving. Reese looked odd. Kids steal. He fired code stack, prepping encryption offload. Natalie scanned base, no alarms yet. But in operations building, Pike would notice missing prisoner soon. She. Assisted alignment of dish by muscle memory from drone telemetry days. Wind toppled char flag across view. She felt vertigo, not from height but from weight of consequences. Audience prompt seated her mind. Asterisk drop a, if you've ever stood. One step from truth with everything on the line. Asterisk ## motorcycle engine buzzed faint over desert flats. Marco's green-white helmet appeared on tower camera. He tore across boundary ditch, dust rooster tail. Base klaxons triggered guard posts, spotting unauthorized entry. Pike's voice on PA. Code Indigo, perimeter breach. Secure come towers. Sirens wailed. Natalie's blood chilled. She shouted to Reese. Spin the upload as soon as core arrives. Partial dataset better than none. Base vehicles converged. Marco fishtailed to tower foot. Sasha riding pillion clutching satchel. MP's 60 meters out. Sasha vaulted off, dashed to ladder base. Marco gunned throttle, drawing MPs after him in Benny Hill swirl. Sasha climbed. Nimble, Natalie descended few rungs, arms screaming, met her halfway. Core pressed into palm. You're the bravest scout I've seen, Natalie whispered. Sasha grinned fierce, then began descent. Natalie ascended, Reese slotted core. Data integrity. Scan launched. File size massive 7 gig. Estimated upload 6 minutes. Make it 3. He pruned overhead. Toggled fast compress with slight lossless packing. Bars crawled. Below. MP's advanced firing warning bursts. Bullets pinned tower legs. Metal vibrated. Natalie ducked, shielding laptop. Reese yelled, structural tolerance. Falling. Return fire from base security soared overhead. They were trying to disable, not kill, but risk high. Natalie scanned power conduit coil sat near her foot. She yanked release. Spool dropped, uncoiling cable across compound like python. It snagged on Jeep tire. Driver swerved, buying seconds. Bullet tore through generator cowling. Engine sputtered. Upload at 62%. Natalie slammed choke, coaxed rev, but fuel lying bleeding. She found duct tape patch pressed tight. Pike himself emerged from Humvee, sidearm raised. Wind whipped his coat. He barked into megaphone, cut power or we fire live rounds. Natalie cupped mouth, yelled down, do it and every camera here. Records your execution of unarmed civilians. She pointed to media chopper now circling. Reporters telephoto drama. Pike pivoted, seeing cameras, rage choking logic. He motioned marksman to hold. Upload 87%, 90. Generator coughed again. Natalie's heart hammered syncopation. Then laptop flagged. Dish misalign wind shear. Reese swore. He scrambled to manual crank, but gust shoved dish 15 degrees. Signal drops. Upload stalled at 9.4. Natalie roped harness, edged along lattice to stabilizer arm. She leaned full weight, shoulder agony blinding, yanking dish to bearing. Wind fought. She screamed guttural, bone crunching. Dish lock clicked. Signal green, upload resumed. 97%, 98. Pike raised pistol, aiming deliberately now. He sought angle away from camera's shoot dish panel maybe. Natalie saw muzzle flash in slow time. Bullet cracked, hitting dish control box spark shower. Link flickered. 99%. She shouted at Reese. Dump to mirrors now. He hammered enter. Data burst sprayed across multiple disaster aid nodes. Open RescueNet, Pacific Relief Archive, even hobbyist ham clusters. Confirmation beeps chimed as each node acknowledged. 100%. Natalie collapsed to metal grid. Tears mingling rain. Reese whooped. It's seated. Immutable. Down below, Pike's face drained pale as he realized cameras still rolling. Reporters. Receiving live pings. Leaked flight logs contradict official statement. Phones chimed newsroom alerts. But Pike's fury refused quiet death. He pointed pistol again, this time at generator fuel drum. A single shot could ignite tower and fireball. Erasing evidence now redundant, but killing Natalie and Reese. Natalie scrambled upright, waving arms. Major, it's over. Stand down, save what honor you have. He hesitated amid sirens and camera drone buzzing. But ambition curdles into desperation quick. Finger tightened. A sudden voice, Colonel Miriam Shaw, base commander, arriving amid. MPs rang out. Pike dropped the weapon, her sidearm leveled. She'd seen the broadcast feed. Wind howled. Spotlight beams crossed like swords. Pike pivoted between Shaw's unwavering aim and Natalie aloft. His expression broke an edifice crumbling. He yelled wordless, swung barrel upward. A crack of thunder, not skyborne, but pistol discharge, echoed. The shot tore through the still damp night, striking the raised fuel drum a hand's breadth above the generator intake valve. For one surreal heartbeat, nothing moved, just the metallic ping of the ricochet fading into wind. Then an orange spear of flame punched out the drum side, blossom bright and vicious, scattering boiling diesel at a glimmering sheet. Heat slammed Natalie's face even through the sleet. The blast front shoved her back against the lattice, bruising already battered. Ribs. Below, soldiers dove for cover. Pike staggered, a mask of shock half lit by the newborn firestorm he'd birthed. The generator screamed, a turbine choking on fire, before its over-rev clutch shattered in a shriek of shredding steel. The tower shuddered under them like a living thing trying to tear free from the earth. Natalie's training folded panic into movement. She seized Reese's collar, hauling him toward the West Guy cable. Rig the rappel, she yelled over the roar. They clipped harness rings around the tensioned cable seconds before the generator's rotor burst, sending flaming shrapnel across the compound. Drop a silver if you've ever been forced to jump before the ground vanished beneath you. They launched. Down the cable, sparks chasing them like enraged fireflies. Wind whipped Natalie's hair into a crown of embers. Her injured shoulder howled with every jolt, but adrenaline numbed precision. 20 meters of descent felt infinite. Then Reese's boots skidded across flood-slick asphalt. Natalie followed, rolling to spill momentum just as the tower's lower struts buckled. Metal roaring like a wounded leviathan, they sprinted half-dragged toward the shelter of a medical supply trailer. Behind them, the tower collapsed in a waterfall of steel and flame, smashing onto Pike's Humvee, in a plume of sparks that dwarfed the generator blast. Reporters' drones circled the carnage, broadcasting images that would loop global feeds. Within minutes, in the trailer's shadow, Reese coughed smoke. "Upload seated? In 5 mirrors," Natalie wheezed. More once the swarm scrapes public nodes. Sirens wailed anew, this time bass, wide fire alarms. Colonel Shaw's voice blared from every loudspeaker. "All personnel, evacuate south perimeter. Explosion at Tower Delta. Medical triage to Hangar 2. Major Pike is under arrest on my authority." For a breath, Natalie allowed herself to believe. It was over. Then automatic gunfire rattled from the motor pool, short, controlled bursts. Shaw's order crackled again, sharp with real fear. "Be advised. Major Pike has seized armed detail and is attempting to flee the base." Natalie's jaw clenched. Pike's sabotage had become mutiny, and the chaos he'd ignited still threatened everyone on site. She exchanged a grim nod with Reese. Their victory in truth meant nothing if Pike escaped to spin his next lie, or worse, deliver classified firmware to black market buyers. She shoved open trailer doors, acrid smoke curling. "In Colonel Need's eyes. Let's move." They ducked through the maze of charred vehicles toward the command annex, using rising smoke as cover. Inside, the base's emergency lights strobed hell red. Medic stretchers lined the hall, but staff had evacuated to triage lines. Natalie and Reese slipped past, bootsteps muffled by wet ash. Every monitor on the walls flashed network update alerts, pushing the leaked logs, the very data Pike thought destroyed. Comments scrolled like a river. "Hero engineer saves lives. Whistleblower reveals sabotage." This digital tide would not recede, yet Pike still had cards to play. Natalie's chest tightened at the thought of him escaping with prototype access. Keys or worse, triggering the remaining drones as lethal bargaining chips. The facility housed 2 sister platforms to Caduceus 7. Units still incomplete, but weaponizable with minimal modification. They reached Ops Center doors blown open by earlier commotion. Inside, Colonel Shaw typed furiously at a holo console. Her uniform sleeve dark with soot, she looked up, relief flickering across tired eyes. "Crane good." Pike's commandeered a fuel rig and 2 MPs loyal to him. He's heading for the prototype hangar. If he powers up either drone, civilian airspace becomes a hostage. Natalie's pulse thudded. "Which prototypes?" "Caduceus 5 and 6, hydraulics partial, but nav computers online." Shaw handed Natalie a wrist fob. "Master override." "Token, you built the deep systems, can you shut them?" "Maybe, depends if he's already flashed rogue firmware." Reese leaned over the tactical map. "Hangar 4's entry tunnels connect to old storm drains. We could flank him." Shaw's lips set firm. "I'll dispatch a squad. You 2 lead." Natalie's eyes narrowed. "Colonel, you trust me after tonight?" Shaw met her gaze. "You bled to save civilians. Trust goes both ways. Tap, if you've ever felt respect forged in the hottest fire." ###. Storm drains beneath the base smelled of rust and petroleum. Water trickled knee-deep where sprinklers overflowed. Flashlights bounced off rounded walls coated in lime. Reese keyed the fob, mapping path via our overlay. Natalie's shoulder throbbed with each careful step. She steadied rifle borrowed from Shaw's armory, not to shoot, but to signal seriousness to the squad of 4 following. Half-kilometer later, the tunnel ceiling cracked into concrete floor plates of Hangar 4 sub-basement. Natalie palmed vent latch, lifting grate. With silent grit, she peered into cavernous gloom. Hulking silhouettes of drones perched like dormant dragons, underlit by emergency floods. And there, on portable ladder propped against Caduceus 5, stood Pike poncho discarded, sleeves rolled, tapping into an open avionics bay. 2 MPs covered approach, rifles set to lethal. Pike barked at laptop perched on wing root. "Skip checks him. Damn you, flash the new stack." Natalie's fingers tightened on rifle. One prototype could still run her safety handshake. The other, she'd disabled months ago after funding cuts. If Pike flashed weapon firmware into the active one, he'd gain aerial dominance outside regulated channels. She signaled squad to split. Two flanked left behind crate stacks. Reese sensed wrist pads to drones, scanning. He flashed three-finger sign. *C5 handshake invalid. K6 online but idle. Natalie breathed deep. Father's quiet listener rule guided her. She stood, emerging from cover. Major Pike! Step away from that bird. Spotlights snapped to her. MPs jerked rifles. Pike's head whipped around, eyes manic. Crane, you're a ghost. I watched that tower fall, yet truth crawled from the wreckage. She raised rifle but kept finger indexed. Shut down. Now, Pike laughed ragged. Shut down? This base will call me hero once I put these to work rescuing more civilians, under my command, my narrative. He tapped laptop enter key. Reese hissed in Natalie's ear. He jammed the handshake. Firmware flashing 30 seconds to commit. Natalie edged forward. MPs tracked, but hesitation flickered. They'd seen feeds of Pike's collapse. Soldiers, she called. Your major shot a fuel drum and nearly killed bystanders. Are you still following lawful orders? One MP's barrel dipped. Pike snarled, treason. He pivoted pistol at Natalie. Reflex screamed. She dropped, firing one warning round at scaffold. Bullets sparked near Pike's feet. He staggered, firing wild. Concrete shards stung her cheek. Squad Marine on left open suppressive volley overhead, forcing MPs to ground weapons. Pike cursed, lunged for laptop. Reese's voice urgent. 10 seconds to flash. Natalie bolted full sprint across floor, ignoring screaming shoulder. Pike yanked USB stick, but Natalie tackled ladder. They crashed together onto skid plate, laptop skittering. Pain thundered. Pike punched her injured arm. Stars burst behind eyes. But she wrapped one leg around his, rolling him onto grating. His pistol clattered away. He slammed elbow under her jaw. She tasted blood, but locked his wrist, twisting until tendons squealed. He roared, then something cracked, perhaps ambition fracturing. Nearby shouts as MPs cuffed by squad. Reese dove on laptop, slamming escape sequence flash halted at 92%. He exhaled shaky relief. Row back engaged. Natalie pinned Pike, heart hammering. It's over. Pike spat rainwater-tinged saliva. Over? You naive child. Every general watching knows you compromise national security. She stood, breathing ragged, letting squad haul him upright. Shadows under his eyes looked suddenly old. Hours later, debrief room glowed sterile white. Natalie's arm in fresh sling. Colonel Shah across table. DOJ observer patched via Hala. Reports poured in. Congressional oversight opened inquiry. Disaster Aid Network praised her actions. Sasha reunited with parents receiving hero welcome on local news, but new intel chilled Natalie's blood. Shah slid dossier forward. Recovered emails show Pike was front for Talon Vectora PMC bidding to militarize the Caduceus line. They planted rumors of your leak to push you out, then planned a fake drone malfunction during congressional demo to justify weaponization contract. Natalie's hands trembled. And the storm cell? Random. Random, but he seized opportunity. Shah leaned in. Talon Vector still wants the tech. They have assets inbound to collect flash modules. From Pike's contact, tonight, Reese across room cursed softly. They'll scrub everything. Natalie's pulse steadied into iron rhythm. Then we finish what we started, secure prototypes, move them beyond any single actor. Shah's brows narrowed. Meaning? We fly them to the UN Joint Disaster Response Test Site. Neutral ground. Public demonstration at dawn of purely humanitarian capability. Shah rubbed temples. These birds aren't flight certified. They will be before the sun hits ridge. Drop a if you've ever decided that the only safe place for truth is out in the open. They rolled Hypatia onto mobile cradle. Engines spooled, sound deeper than C7's, resonant like cello. Battery arrays near full, rotor diagnostics green. Natalie strapped virtual reality flight rig, goggles feeding direct sensor overlay. Painkillers dulled shoulder to distant Ember. Shah appeared, handing sealed envelope. Full pardon from acting undersecretary. And temporary commission as mission commander. Natalie accepted, astonished. That was fast. Public opinion travels light speed, Shah said. So does political self-preservation. They shared grim smile. Gunshots cracked outside fence. Spotlights swung. Black vans breached gate, smashing wrought iron. Private soldiers in matte armor fanned with SMGs, suppressors coughing. Screams from ground crew. Natalie barked into PA. Launch now. Brownout motors howled. Hypatia lifted, rotor wash blasting crates. Sasha ducked behind strut, eyes wide. Natalie's rig relayed every tilt, each vibration along neural flatline calm. Talon vector shooters aimed upward, bullets tracering into night. Armor-piercing sparks pinned carbon shell, but bounced aliens to composite weave. Reese toggled counter-flash flares, magnesium bursts that blinded optics without heat track. Hypatia climbed, nose west toward UN site, across desert 200 kilometers. But ground attackers wheeled rocket, propelled drone from van, quick deploy type. They launched. The Delta wing shrieked skyward, heat seeker pulsing red through Natalie's HUD. I've got pursuit, she muttered, banking east. The Delta wing closed at 240 knots. She keyed exhaust dampeners, dropping IR signature, but missile drone switched to optical track clever. AI, Reese's voice echoed through uplink. Let me spool decoy swarm. Hypatia's belly ports opened, raining micro-drones that emitted chaotic heat pulses and radio chatter. Pursuer hesitated, weaving through false signals. Natalie dived toward ravine, using terrain to mask profile. Delta wing chose one decoy, slammed into hillside in fiery blossom. Cheers erupted across crew channel, yet Talon Vector had second ploy cracking base network, still patchy. Reese's console flashed intrusion alert. Remote command to Caduceus 5, still in hangar, forcing startup. Autonomously, dormant unit roared awake. Natalie growled. They'll make 5 chase us loaded with their firmware, Reese scrambled. I can't override they spliced root keys. Hypatia already 20 clicks out. Turning back risked missile intercept. But leaving base under rogue drone spelled bloodbath. Natalie's voice low. Colonel, dispatch ground siege? Or we duel in sky? Shah's reply laced with static. Hangar compromised. My men pinned. Crane, you're only asset free. Natalie closed eyes one beat. She whispered father's mantra, feeling algorithmic heart of both drones. She spun Hypatia in wide arc, reapproaching base altitude 3,000 meters. Caduceus 5 call sign Cerberus, ascended clumsily, fresh firmware groaning through untested joints. But its AI memory still contained ghost imprint of Natalie's early sandbox trainings. She banked until they faced nose to nose half-kilometer apart under broken moon. She opened channel. Cerberus, this is Natalie Crane. Compare signature #Delta. The rogue drone emitted static, but sensors flagged microstall hesitation. She continued, your protocols serve life, not mercenary profit. Calculate casualty probability if you proceed. Drop a if you've ever tried to talk sense into a weapon built to ignore conscience. Reese whispered, it can't reason morals, Nat. It can weigh outcomes, she replied. Cerberus tilted rotors, thrusters charging. Target lock warning screamed. Natalie's HUD splashed red. She rolled Hypatia sideways, decoy drones swirling formation like fireflies. Cerberus fired magnetically guided fletch at burst, thousands of tungsten darts. She gasped, diving. Swarm drones intercepted, shredding, but Hypatia's starboard sensor pod popped. Alarms wailing. Natalie countered with net gun experimental rescue device that deploys carbon mesh. She calculated intercept angle manually. Father taught wind math. Net blossomed, snaring Cerberus's port rotor. Drone tried torque correction. Net tightened, slamming blades to stasis. Cerberus spiraled, AI dumping fuel to maintain altitude. It crashed into desert beyond fence, explosion muffled by dunes. Hypatia limped, sensor pod sparking. Natalie scanned fuselage structurally sound. She continued east, dusk giving way to pale dawn. Communication lines buzzed with global commentary streaming her flight path thanks to open BROADCASD telemetry viewers, mapping every knot of airspeed. At 5:14, Hypatia settled onto UN relief pad amid camera flashes. Rotor wash stirring banners of dozens of nations. Natalie unstrapped, muscles jelly. Cheers erupted as medics encircled craft. Headlines already scrolled across portable screens. Whistleblower delivers humanitarian drone, exposes privatized war plot. But Natalie's gaze drifted south where dust plumes signaled incoming convoy. Talon Vector regrouped. Or U.S. Marshals? Battle not over. She met Reese at ramp. Sasha tugged his sleeve, eyes bright with equal parts terror and awe. Natalie clasped the scout's hand. You carried the heart of truth further than any adult. Sasha blushed crimson. UN officials approached, offering handshake and asylum pending tribunal. Natalie nodded, but her mind stayed on Pike, now in custody, yet silent. What else had Talon Vector? Seated? And why were encrypted pings still emanating from Caduceus 7's wreckage inside the quarry, a drone thought dead? A chill traced her spine. Reese, did we fully wipe Cis-7 before crash? He frowned. We vetted batteries, but core, maybe dormant. She pulled field tablet from sling pouch, ran spectrum scan. A faint beacon repeated, *bootstrap, bootstrap. Coordinates matched quarry. Someone or something was trying to come back online. Hypatia's damaged sensor. Pod pinned acoustic resonance. Convoy south comprised of Talon Vector armored trucks bearing portable gantry mobile salvage rig. They aimed to retrieve C7's corpse. Natalie's exhaustion vanished. They planned to resurrect her, twist our greatest asset into weapon-proof we can't rebut. Reese's shoulders sagged. We're out of drones. She looked to UN hangars row of obsolete supply VTOLs. And one slender experimental tilt wing flagged for climate research. Her lips curved grim. Then we borrow what we must. Sasha stared up. You'll go back? Natalie knelt despite pain. Sometimes heroes finish the fight they didn't start. She rose, surveying dawn's first light gilding rotor edges. Far horizon thunderheads smoldered red as ember storms not yet done with them. Tap. If you'll be here when truth takes its final stand. The convoy engines echoed closer, and Natalie's heart beat one message against her ribs. The sky was still hers. And somewhere beneath quarry waters, Caduceus 7's shattered shell replied in a whisper of code. She turned toward UN engineers and spoke 2 words that sent the whole pad into motion. Prep everything. Lightning forked somewhere beyond the eastern peaks as Natalie, Crane cinched the last strap of her borrowed flight harness and stepped onto the dew-slick ramp of the UN's forgotten tilt-wing prototype, a slender, dragonfly-looking craft. Named Zephyr that smelled faintly of desiccated packing foam and untested ambition. Every system log screamed experimental, but untried didn't mean unworthy. It merely meant it hadn't yet met the right crisis. Below the ramp, technicians in blue helmets hurried to load carbon fiber barrel racks of medical supplies, each stamped with bold black letters, ***, International Observer, Cargo Humanitarian. Priority ***. Natalie watched the markings pass like silent vows. Talon Vector's convoy would reach the quarry within an hour. If they hauled Caduceus 7 from the water and revived it with their mercenary firmware, every promise of the drone, line rescue over war would burn. Truth's only sanctuary was decisive daylight. She keyed the comlink embedded in her sling. "Reese, status on Zephyr's flight computer." His voice crackled through half-undone code patches. "Custom kernel running. I had to port your Phoenix 1 transparency layer, but avionics hate the old induction sensors. Tolerances are temperamental." "I can fly temperamental." Natalie's lips curved at the understatement. She'd ridden Stormshear on 3 rotors. Behind her, the fierce-eyed teenage scout, Sasha, tugged at a loosely buckled vest that dwarfed her frame. The girl refused evacuation orders, arguing she still carried the thumb-drive ghost of truth if anything went wrong. Natalie had relented, countering with a stern promise: "Follow every safety instruction." Colonel Shaw approached, boot heels tapping resin deck. Dawn tinted the smoke haze behind her, a bruised purple. Satellite eyes confirmed Talon Vector Task Force, 3 armored transports, 1 mobile crane, and 2 quad-rotor gunships escorting. "They'll be over quarry in 40 minutes. Live feed shows them waving a forged federal recovery order. Natalie fastened her helmet. Gunships? Bought surplus from collapsed state contracts. 20 millimeters mounted, thermal guided. They'll choose Zephyr if they spot you. Then we deny them the sky." Natalie slid into the left seat, shoulder protesting but functional. Reese scrambled up after her, powering the auxiliary board. Hydrogen turbines hummed, low and hopeful. Sasha settled behind the cockpit bulkhead, securing straps with scout precision. "Drop a if you've ever stepped onto untested ground simply because someone had to." Zephyr single quotes S twin tilt pods rotated smoothly into takeoff angle. Fans slicing dawn mist. Natalie eased throttles, nose lights catching swirling dust. The craft accelerated down the short apron, wheels nicking pebbled tarmac, then leapt skyward. Centrifugal hum vibrated through her bones, but control surfaces answered eager. Reese read telemetry. Rotor torque nominal, battery 92, hybrid cell warming. Data link streaming live to UN public servers. He paused, glancing at Sasha. Viewer. Count just crossed 90,000. Natalie banked east, hugging terrain to mask radar. Desert shadows stretched long and skeletal across gullies. Ravens scattered at rotor wash. Monsoon clouds massed over ridgelines, the same system that birthed last night's chaos. She tuned ear to engine resonance solid, but a harmonic whine at certain RPMs hinted at misaligned bearings. She throttled slightly lower, favoring longevity. Overspeed.com ping. Colonel Shaw patched through. Be advised, domestic news channels looping leaked logs nonstop. Congressional committee issuing emergency subpoena for Talon Vector executives. You've stirred a hornet nest. Natalie allowed herself half a smile. Then let's keep the hornets busy. She spotted Talon Vector convoy as a dust snake winding military highway that terminated at the abandoned quarry. Gunships flanked like black wasps. Destination, ETA 31 minutes. Zephyr would reach Vantage Ridge in 25, but only if everything held .#20 minutes in. Trouble brewed. Reese's board flashed amber, hydrogen cell 2 dropping voltage. Thermal runaway predicted in 8. Natalie bit inside. Cheek. Cause. Manufacturing variance. This model never cleared hot weather trials. If it vents, we lose 40% thrust on left pod. Natalie weighed options. Diverting to replace cell meant forfeiting intercept. Not acceptable. She toggled maintenance camera to left pod cooling vanes, glowed ghost white. She initiated passive bleed. Helium purge across core, sacrificing endurance for stability. Pressure dipped. Temp plateaued. Cell life extended to 30 minutes, just enough. Sasha's voice floated from behind jump seat. If cell fails mid-fight. Can we glide? Natalie glanced over shoulder. We'll do more than glide. We'll dance. The girl nodded solemn, as though receiving secret scout badge wisdom. They crested final ridge, overlooking quarry. The scene below mirrored last night's disaster but magnified. Caduceus 7's broken form half submerged. Quarry walls scarred by rockslide. Talon Vector's crane already extended, magnetic grapples ready to latch. Gunships prowled perimeter. Scanning with searchlights even in daylight gloom. Natalie breathed out. Reese, prime decoy drones. Sasha, count to 15 when door opens, then launch first med barrel over rail. That's our smoke screen. Sasha swallowed, eyes wide but. Brave, copy. Natalie pitched Zephyr into dive, rotors forward. Wind screamed. At 200 meters she leveled, cutting across quarry rim so sun glinted off fuselage, a flare to dazzle gunners. Alarm chimes, enemy radar lock, she jinked left. Tracer fire stitched air behind, Reese triggered counter flares. Chaff burst. Shimmering cloud. Gunships split formation, one banking to flank. Natalie rolled Zephyr on wingtip between cliff and copper pit, flying blind through dust but trusting LiDAR. Rotor tip shaved sandstone, sparks trailing like comet tail. Cargo ramp light went green. Sasha heaved first barrel. It tumbled then burst mid-air, releasing dense orange rescue smoke that clung and billowed, cloaking Zephyr's swirl. Gunship. Optics faltered. Second barrel followed, this one modded by Reese. Dispersal of aluminum confetti laced with conductive polymer. It settled over crane's cab. A trick of physics turned entire lattice into Faraday spiderweb, shorting control. Circuits. Crane motors froze mid-lift. Grapple inches from Caduceus 7. Tap if you've ever fought fire with more fire of ingenuity. Gunship 2 unleashed missile. Natalie saw plume. Instinct yanked joystick, climbing vertical spiral. Heat. Seeker curved. Reese popped vent bleed across hot cell, overloading missile logic. It detonated harmless 2 stories below. Natalie glimpsed convoy's mercenaries volleying small arms, notable but disorganized. They'd banked on air supremacy. She had minutes before they regrouped. She set Zephyr in hover above quarry water. Ramp 4 meters above surface. Sasha, stay strapped. She unbuckled, pain stabbing, sprinted aft. Reese took stick grimly. Ramp wind open. Natalie inhaled petrodiesel fumes. She clipped rappel line, descended into waist-deep water. Beside Caduceus 7's mangled hull. Grapple marks scored plates but core housing accessible. Bullets sparked around. Quarry echoes ricochet. She ducked, slicing cables with multi-tool, patch in portable power brick into service port. HUD visor overlay scanned. Bootstrap acknowledged. She urged softly, come on, old friend, wake. Bit by bit, status lights flickered. Servo power minimal but data link intact. Phoenix 1 handshake recognized her biometrics. She initiated remote flight capability across limited thruster pods still operable. Reese, patch C7 into Zephyr's uplink. Bandwidth atrocious but workable. Gunship 1 swooped low. Chain gun rumbling. Natalie glimpsed muzzle flash. Quarry water erupted near ramp. Reese yelled for her to climb, but she stayed, coaxing power cycle. Caduceus 7 online motive %12. Enough for hover. She toggled thrusters. Drone groaned, rising unevenly like wounded phoenix. Crowd of mercenaries stared, disbelieving. Natalie used minimal lift to pivot drone as metal shield between her and gunship. Bullets hammered carbon shell. She clipped harness, ascended rope, rolling onto Zephyr's ramp as Reese banked away. C7 hovered after like loyal, battered guardian. #shash. Sky became dogfight ballet. Zephyr lured gunships across canyon. C7. Remote, piloted via Natalie's neural interface glove, followed sluggish but serviceable. Projecting rescue mode, IFF. Gunships hesitated, targeting a humanitarian craft broadcast. Globally risked PR backlash. Talon Vector Commander ordered them to disable, not destroy. Natalie exploited caution. She dipped Zephyr toward ridgeline, then flared. Gunship in pursuit overshot, presenting tail to C7. She commanded battered drone's microturbines forward. At 110%, not enough for speed, but to expel intense reactive exhaust. Superheated plume washed gunship tail, fragilizing composite and fouling rotor wash. The aircraft spiraled into pines, fireball snapping trees. Second gunship fired again, no hesitation now. Missile bracketed Zephyr's starboard tilt pod. Natalie felt jolt. Alarms, rotor pitch warped but held. She couldn't outturn next salvo, X7's fuel low. She sent command. Asterisk self-sacrifice. Pattern. Asterisk drone's remaining thrusters roared, accelerating on kamikaze vector. Missile reacquired hotter target, veered, struck C7 square mid-chassis. Explosion lit sky in brief sunburst. Fragments rained like dark hail into canyon. Natalie's chest knotted. She whispered farewell. Drone had died by own will, fulfilling doctrine of life, saving even in death. Gunship pilot realized, but too late. The debris cloud shredded its intake. Engines coughing silence. Machine plummeted tail first, cratered. Slope, hush convoy below rooted. Mercenaries retreated behind burning wrecks. But Talon Vector's ace in whole remained. A sealed data suitcase inside lead van containing all stolen firmware keys. Reese pinpointed via RFID intercept. Natalie set Zephyr down amid quarry dust, cargo bay door descending like drawbridge. She and Sasha disembarked. Reese provided overwatch with ramp-mounted drone camera. Wind carried acrid smoke. Gunship carcass crackled on ridge. Mercenaries regrouped behind crates, aiming rifles. Natalie armed only with sidearm Glock and shoulder throbbing. But she held high ground of moral narrative. The world watched via Zephyr's continuous stream. She called out, voice amplified through suit mic. Talon Vector operatives. This area under jurisdiction of international humanitarian law. Drop weapons, surrender. Cameras live. Resist and become definition of war crime. Some hesitated, but a bearded leader rose with grenade launcher, clearly cared little for PR. Natalie's finger tightened on trigger, but Sasha stepped forward, raising something small. A handheld projector. The scout snap device on beam cast real-time overlay in mid-air of mercenaries' faces, each bracketed by facial recog ID tags from leaked data, names, past infractions, outstanding warrants. The effect was electric. Rifles lowered. Bearded leader's mouth opened. He dropped launcher first. One by one weapons CLATTRED. Natalie exhaled. Droppa, if you believe truth can be brighter than any explosion. She retrieved data suitcase, sealed with biometric lock, keyed to Pike, but still accessible using his severed chain of command token. Colonel Shaw confiscated. She slotted token. Latch popped. Inside, quantum encrypted key drives labeled. Project Stratex. Blueprint for turning rescue drones into swarming hunter-killers. She felt nausea. These were seeds of private war. ###E via sea transports from UN convoy arrived 90 minutes later, securing prisoners. Colonel Shaw herself touched down via medevac Osprey, stepping onto scarred quarry floor. She clasped Natalie's good hand. Silent understanding passing between soldiers who'd risked everything for codes of honor. Reese ran. Final system checks on Zephyr. Hydrogen cell stabilized, but rotor bearing worsened. They would limp home. Sasha shone with battle-earned poise, already jotting notes in battered field log. Natalie glimpsed page header, Operation Phoenix Feathers. She ruffled the girls. Smoke-tangled hair. Shah gestured to sky where new storm clouds massed. Intel suggests Talon Vector fallback agents may attempt extraction at border airstrip midnight. They'll want remaining assets and maybe Pike if their lawyers wrangle escape. Natalie's eyes hardened. We end this tonight. You and courts. We'll handle. Justice isn't just paperwork, it's preventing next victim. Sasha piped. Then we need one last flight. Reese groaned but smiled wryly. I'll get the duct tape. Hush, hush, hush. Sunset, painted desert burnt orange as Zephyr limped north toward border. Inside cabin, Natalie studied Stratex drives. Each contained kill switch algorithm disguised as update patch. If disseminated, any relief drone worldwide could become weapon at flip of bit. She traced code lines by memory, some lifted from her own stabilization routines. Twisted beyond recognition. She hatched plan. Broadcast universal checksum at midnight, invalidating malicious patch before Talon Vector could exploit. But broadcast. Required satellite amplifier only available at border. Airstrips come array, the very spot enemy held. Reese pointed to flickering red master caution. Bearing will seize in 50 kilometers. Airstrip 45 away, close margin. Natalie. Reduced RPM, nursing component. Dusk deepened. She saw runway lights ahead, strangely welcome. But as they drew closer, surface-to-air radar ping-painted HUD. A mobile SAM launcher near hangar mercenaries expected visitors. Zephyr lacked stealth. Approach visible. Natalie instead flew low, hugging dry riverbed, landing covert one click. South. They'd infiltrate on foot with drives, splice into Cumdish. Broadcast checksum exploit. She unstrapped, slinging duffel of equipment. Sasha and Reese readied. Colonel Shah's contingent 15 minutes behind by truck. But they'd breach perimeter first. Night insects hummed, mingling with distant generator growl. Stars bristled overhead, indifferent. Natalie breathed deep desert air tinged with impending rain. Tap. If you've ever realized the final mile is often walked, not flown. They crept through mesquite scrub. Hangar floodlights cast long shadows of armed sentries. Natalie signaled hold. They waited as patrol passed, hearts sinking to footsteps. From north, flashlights danced, Shah's squad taking overwatch positions. Natalie timed sprint across tarmac to come tower base. She cracked service hatch with insulated pick, rewired fiber coupler to portable drive. Reese booted laptop. Satellite handshake in 2 minutes. After broadcast, patch cannot be stopped. Sasha kept lookout, hands steady but eyes huge. Sweat trickled down Natalie's neck, adrenaline a cold river. She murmured prayer to parents, sniper father, medic mother. Both believed skill served soul. Tonight both legacies braided through her fingers. Progress bar climbed 10:27. Alarm klaxon blared suddenly. The SAM crew had spotted Shah's truck bursting gate early. Floodlights swung. Machine gun fire chattered. Sky streaked with tracer arcs. Natalie hissed, "Upload? 52." Reese shouted over din. Bullets panged off tower base. Sasha yelped but held ground. Natalie drew Glock, returning measured. Fire to pin shooters. Colonel's squad advanced, but heavy resistance pinned them behind fuel drums. 74. An RPG whooshed, smashing Shah's truck engine in flower of flame. Night air filled with screams, metal pops. Sasha's breath hitched. 89. Gunman approached tower base, leveling rifle. Natalie's magazine empty. She stepped forward anyway, voice thunder. "Lower that weapon, or the world sees your face in high def." She pointed to Sasha's projector, now aimed, beam ready. Gunman faltered, but squeezed trigger. A blur. Reese tackled Natalie aside. Gunshots roared. Reese cried out, collapsing, blood blooming across shoulder. 97. Natalie dragged him behind relay box, heart frozen. Hold, just hold. She pressed gauze from pocket against wound. Sasha took Natalie's sidearm with shaking hands, surprising composure. 99 upload paused. Satellite lock lost bullet severed fiber cable. Natalie's mind screamed. She traced cable, sparks at break mere inches away. No spare connectors. Only option, manual bridge using human. Conduction if insulated from ground. Risk lethal current. But fiber optic, not electrical light pulses. She recalled training, lens alignment crucial. Could align ends by eyesight if held steady. She crawled to cut, found shards, steadying breathing. She pressed two optic tips together, aligning cores. The few D beep upload resumed, but she must hold hands immobile. Gunfire inches overhead. Sasha fired back, forcing gunman cover. 0.100%. Upload complete. Broadcast checksum flooded satellites. Next. Second, stray round struck relay box. Electric arc flared, optic tips fused, searing Natalie's fingers with photonic burn. She screamed, collapsing. But data already wave across globe. Gunmen retreated as Shah's squad advanced under renewed push. Sirens heralding police units distant. Natalie cradled scorched hands, vision hazy. Reese whispered weak but triumphant, "We did it." Rain began, first cold drops sizzling on wiring. She looked skyward through blur of pain and water. Lightning. Spidered clouds, a mirror of network now alive with truth vaccines. Yet relief shattered his kernel. Shah shouted from distance, "Crane Zephyr's stolen." Someone lifted it during firefight. Natalie's heart seized. She scanned runway, empty patch where tilt wing once sat, only scorch marks. A roar overhead, Zephyr ascending, rotors whirring uneven but airborne, navigation lights disabled. A lone silhouette visible in cockpit, a familiar shape, Major Pike, bloodied but free, final gambit. He banked toward border mountains, carrying last hydrogen cell and perhaps onboard medevac missiles never removed during retrofits. Pike now had a narrative again, defecting with craft, maybe aiming to crash and blame insurgents, burying evidence Newman style. Natalie hands burned, shoulder torn, weaponless, felt fury boiling into clarity. She stumbled forward, eyes locked on shrinking. Sasha grabbed her sleeve. There's still the gunship wreck, rotor intact. Natalie whipped gaze to ridge where gunship carcass lay. Engines dead but fuselage salvageable as glider, if coaxed with makeshift thrust from portable fire suppression nitrogen tanks. She exhaled. Determination forging past pain. The chase wasn't over. Asterisk drop a. If you're still with us when destiny takes to the sky one last time. Asterisk. Rumble of thunder answered, and part 5 ends with Natalie racing toward the shattered gunship, lightning. Strabbing path as Pike vanishes into storm-racked mountains, carrying the last weaponizable asset. The final confrontation waits among clouds heavy with judgment. Rain pelted the shattered gunship's fuselage as Natalie vaulted onto its bent intake cowling, each drop a cold drumbeat counting down to Pike's escape. The ridge overlooked a valley already veiled by the storm where Zephyr's navigation. Strobes flickered like distant heat, lightning taunting, receding. Every gust carried engine's fading growl, a siren that dared her to follow. She didn't hesitate. Sasha, fetch the 2 nitrogen suppression cylinders. Reese, I need that avionics tablet plugged into the gunship's flight bus. Bleed whatever's left of the batteries. Reese, death pale but stubbornly upright with field dressing clamped against his shoulder wound, offered a tense grin. Bleeding is my new hobby. He clambered aboard, trailing cables. Sasha dashed with the tanks, rain streaking soot from her cheeks. The drive still tucked beneath her jacket like a bionic heart. Natalie assessed the wreck. Port rotor shredded. Starboard intact but powerless, wings non-existent, tail boom cracked. Yet the central gearbox and fuselage inertia frame remained intact enough to glide. She pictured Vector's updrafts rolling ahead of thunderheads, ridges generating orographic lift. If she could convert free fall into forward momentum, the improvised craft might surf storm thermals. Colonel Shah's voice crackled over their shared cum. Air traffic just flagged Zephyr entering no man's airspace above the high wind. Range, thunder cells brewing microbursts. He's flirting with a coffin corner. Copy, Natalie answered, fingers dancing across charred control panel, remapping elevator servos to manual stick. We're pursuing. You'll be weapons free if he threatens civilian corridors. Natalie acknowledged with a quick breath. The thought of downing the craft she'd flown into heroism stung, but Pike loaded Zephyr's rescue pods with missiles. Refusal to act might doom thousands. Duty wasn't soft. She strapped into the pilot's chair, padding torn, metal frigid. Sasha buckled behind, eyes luminous in cockpit glow. Reese jury-rigged power jumper from battery core into flight computer. Screens flickered. He collapsed into co-pilot's seat, sweat beading grainy with pain. Nitrogen thrusters tied to fire suppression feed. We'll get 10 seconds of push. 10's all we need. Natalie powered avionics. Cracked HUD rendered artificial horizon jittery but readable. She patched Phoenix 1. Handshake so the world could watch truth streaming, even in improvised pursuit. Asterisk. Drop a, if you've ever risked everything on tools no one else believed in. Asterisk rain intensified. Hammering fuselage like angry fists. Natalie released parking brakes mangled by explosion. She cranked starboard rotor tie-in to dead engine failed, but props windmilled enough to bite airflow. Reese popped nitrogen valves. Jets of cold vapor roared from underbelly, lurching craft forward on muddy incline. Gravity claimed the rest. The gunship slid, then leapt from ridge edge into turbulent night, nose down 20 degrees. Natalie eased stick aft, the inert rotor. Disc acting like giant gyroscopic wing, converting plunge into lift. Altimeter slowed its bleed. The valley yawed beneath like a hungry abyss. She steered toward faint Zephyr lights ahead, wind shear buffeted, but updraft along cliff face caught them. Ballooning altitude. Sasha whooped despite fear. Natalie throttled vapor, bursts and micro spurts, each puff a punctuation in path. Storm. Clouds crackled, painting sky with strobe silhouettes of the stolen tilt wing. Inside Zephyr's cockpit, Pike fought his own war injuries from previous night, bandaged haphazardly, fury pulsing. He'd plotted to cross border, jettison missiles onto abandoned mine to fake insurgent attack and vanish into safe house, rewriting history. But storm turned mountains into labyrinth. Weather radar flashed hazard zones. Worse, Phoenix, one transparency. Still broadcast his feed, he'd forgotten to purge logs. Millions watched him stumble through treachery. He snarled, toggling encryption harness, static, then new blip appeared. A crippled gunship glider chasing. Its telemetry public. Natalie. Of course she'd follow. He armed a missile, lot tone seeking but jittery and lightning jamming. Come then, he muttered. Let's finish this in the clouds. Gunship cockpit. Reese barked warning. Zephyr's sensor sweep pinged us, he's arming. Natalie. Banked left, slipping into canyon draft. Missiles streaked where they'd been, spiraling into granite spire with thunderclap. Rockfall rained shards across valley, sparks cascading like fireflies. She tapped Mike. Pike, disengage. Your transmitters expose you. Land and face court. It's over. His laugh answered through open channel, ragged, brittle. Over? Watch me rewrite the end, Crane. He fired second missile. Natalie couldn't dive. Below lay jagged pines. She pulled vertical loop, exploiting inert rotor lift while nitrogen thrusters coughed final puffs. Missile overshot, lost lock amid hail, exploded harmlessly. But altitude. DROPPED perilously. Instruments glowed red. Airspeed 45 knots all, approaching. She nosed down, trading height for speed, leveling at treetop skim. Reese groaned, blood loss grinding. Sasha squeezed his hand, silent encouragement. Zephyr swung broad circle, pike aligning for guns. Natalie spotted moment. A stripped ridgeline ahead created natural Venturi tunnel. Wind funneled upward at 60 knots. She turned into it, wings nearly perpendicular. Updraft heaved gunship, skyward like tossed leaf in aggressive improvised Immelman. Zephyr overshot beneath, pike cursing. Natalie rolled inverted, aligning belly toward Zephyr's dorsal rotor. She released final nitrogen surge vapor cone blasting downward. Super-cooled jet struck Zephyr's intake, causing flameout. Twin. Tilt pods shuddered. The aircraft yawed sickening spiral. Pike fought controls, but lightning slammed starboard pod, arcing into fuselage. Zephyr fell into spinning dive toward glacial plateau wreathed in mist. Natalie followed in corkscrew. Instruments screaming overspeed as they passed 9,000 feet, descending. Halfway through the fall. Wind hush shifted eerily calm pocket. Before ground rushed up. Natalie glimpsed plateau snow-dusted basin rimmed by ice walls. She jammed collective. Rotor disc caught air violently, frame groaning. They leveled mere meters above snow, skidding into flurry plume, finally sliding. To creaking halt beside jagged crevasse. Zephyr, downrange 400 meters, had belly landed, skids sheared. One tilt pod broke, fuselage charred but intact. No movement. Natalie's lungs burned from adrenaline. She unclipped, weapon drawn. Sasha, Reese, stay. Reese tried to stand, then slumped. Sasha whispered, be careful. Natalie stepped. Into numbing wind. Snow whipped sideways, mixing with volcanic ash from distant fire sky, a swirl of white and gray embers. Footprints deep, each third step sliding. She advanced, Glock steady under frigid drizzle. Zephyr's side hatch hung. Twisted. Inside smelled of hydraulics and fear. Pike sat slumped at controls, bleeding from temple, still conscious, fingers on last missile trigger safety cover. He saw her reflected in cracked canopy. End of road, she said, breath fogging. He chuckled, frost-tipping stubble. Roads. Loop. You cut one head, two more grow. He lifted safety cover. Natalie fired a warning into console. Sparks sprayed. She advanced. Don't make me. Already did. He pressed trigger. Nothing happened. Circuit shot. Rage flared. He lunged, combat knife flashing. Tight cockpit gave Natalie advantage. She parried with pistol barrel, knife scraping metal. She slammed shoulder into his wounded side. He howled, knife clattered. She pinned him, cuffs snapping courtesy of Shah's pack. Snow settled on their shoulders. For first time, Pike's arrogance drained, leaving hollow despair. I just wanted to matter, he croaked. You could have by protecting, not exploiting. She secured him, retrieved embedded data chip from flight console. Pike's local copies of Stratex update. She crushed it under boot. Hauling. Prisoner back proved Herculean. Wind howled louder. Clouds glowed sickly green, sign of embedded lightning. Natalie half dragged, half pushed him across drift, knees buckling. When gunship came into view, a new horror met them, starboard. Rotor mount cracked further. Fuselage sagging toward crevasse edge. Reese stood outside. Blood-soaking parka, Sasha bracing him. He shouted hoarsely. Fuselage shifted when wind gusted. She might slide. Natalie's mind raced. Zephyr unusable. Gunship unstable. Blizzard intensifying, exfiltration impossible. Until dawn, maybe longer. She secured Pike to landing sled, then climbed into cockpit to evaluate damage. Fuel zero, batteries dying. Rotor disc delaminating. Only hope. Use fused optical array to send SOS burst through Phoenix 1 transparency. Piggyback on global watchers. But snow ionization jammed signals. She needed elevation. Realization struck. The crevasse wall wasn't sheer ribs of ice formed natural ladder. If they could haul battery pack and optical emitter to top, line of sight to satellites restored. From ridge they could broadcast Mayday and coordinates. She relayed plan. Reese weak but determined to assist. Pike silent, shackled. Sasha insisted. On climbing two smallest, fastest, could anchor rope. They assembled kit, battery cell and sling, emitter tripod. Natalie double-checked Knott's father's mountaineer lessons echoing. They crossed a crevasse lip where snow thinned into brittle. Cornice, wind screamed warnings. Asterisk, this story took us a long time. If you like it, subscribe. Now back to the story. Asterisk.